My family sent me to a farm as punishment. I thought they were abandoning me. But the quiet farmer looked at me once and said, "You can stay with me," and that single sentence changed my entire life. I still remember the sound of the car tires crunching over gravel as if each stone was a sentence being passed on me. My family didn't speak much during the drive. They didn't have to. Their silence said everything: disappointment, anger, and that heavy belief that I had somehow failed to become the person they wanted. When my father finally pulled over near the wooden gate, he didn't look at me. He just said, "You'll stay here. Think about your life." That was it. No hug. No goodbye. Just a suitcase placed beside me and the car driving away, leaving behind a cloud of dust that stung my eyes more than the tears I refused to let fall. The farm looked endless. Golden fields stretched under the sun, broken only by fences and a distant barn that leaned slightly to one side like it was tired of standing. Chickens clucked somewhere nearby, and the air smelled of soil, grass, and something raw and honest that I couldn't name yet. I felt small, abandoned, and angry all at once. I dragged my suitcase through the gate, not knowing where to go. Then I saw him. He was standing near the barn, holding a bucket in one hand, his sleeves rolled up, forearms marked with lines of hard work. He wasn't what I expected. Not old, not rough-looking in the way movies show farmers. He was quiet, tall, with calm eyes that studied me like he was trying to understand a storm rather than fear it. "You must be the girl," he said simply. That was it. No judgment. No questions. "I'm Elias." I nodded, unsure what to say. My throat felt tight. I wanted to scream that I didn't belong here, that this was a mistake, that my family had no right to dump me like this. But none of that came out. "Your family said you'd be staying for a while," he continued. "You can put your things inside." He turned and walked toward the farmhouse without checking if I was following. Somehow, I did. The house was old but clean. Wooden floors, simple furniture, windows that let in so much light it felt like the sun lived there. He showed me a small room upstairs. A bed, a desk, a window overlooking the fields. "This will be yours," he said. "Dinner's at 7. If you're hungry earlier, there's bread and soup in the kitchen." Then he left. No rules. No warnings. No lectures. That night, I lay awake listening to the sounds of the farm. Wind moving through crops, distant animals, the creak of wood settling. I hated how calm it all felt. I hated that a part of me felt safe. The next morning started early. Too early. A knock on my door. "If you want breakfast, I'll be in the kitchen." I checked the time. 5:30. Downstairs, Elias was already moving like the day had been waiting for him. He handed me a bowl of eggs and bread and sat across from me, eating in silence. It was uncomfortable at first, but strangely, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt respectful. After breakfast, he handed me a pair of gloves. "You don't have to work," he said. "But if you want to keep busy, you can help." I wanted to refuse. This was punishment, after all. Why should I help? But doing nothing felt worse. So I followed him. Days passed like that. Feeding animals. Cleaning stalls. Carrying baskets of vegetables that made my arms ache. Elias didn't talk much, but when he did, his words were careful, like he believed every sentence mattered. He never asked why I was sent there. That bothered me more than if he had. One evening, after a long day, I finally snapped. "Don't you want to know?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. "Why I'm here." He looked at me, really looked at me. "You'll tell me if you want to," he said. "If not, that's fine too." I didn't know what to do with that kind of patience. At night, memories of my family replayed in my head. The arguments, the shouting, the way they called me irresponsible, a disappointment, a problem they didn't know how to fix. I had thought being sent away would feel like rejection. Instead, it felt like being paused in time. Slowly, something inside me started to change. I noticed how Elias spoke gently to the animals, how he fixed broken things instead of replacing them, How he sat on the porch every evening just watching the sky turn orange and purple. He lived like the world wasn't rushing him. One night, while we sat on the porch, he finally spoke words that stayed with me. "Most people don't need punishment," he said quietly. "They need space to hear themselves again." I didn't reply. My eyes burned. Weeks passed. My hands grew rougher. My sleep grew deeper. My anger softened into something heavier, sadness, maybe, or truth. And somewhere between sunrise chores and quiet dinners, I realized something frightening. I didn't want to leave. Then came the letter. It arrived one afternoon in a plain envelope with my family's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it, expecting rules, timelines, conditions. Instead, it was short. They wanted me back. I stared at the paper for a long time. That night, I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Elias noticed. "You're leaving," he said, not asking. "I don't know," I whispered. "They want me back." He nodded slowly, as if he had known this day would come. Then he said something that changed everything. "You can stay with me." The words hung in the air, quiet but powerful. My heart pounded. "What?" "Not as a punishment," he added. "As a choice." I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I saw something beyond the quiet farmer. I saw loneliness, kindness, a man who had built a peaceful life and was brave enough to share it. And suddenly, I realized this wasn't just about a farm anymore. It was about where I truly belonged. The night after Elias said those words, I barely slept. "You can stay with me." They kept echoing in my head, not loud, not dramatic, but steady, like a heartbeat I had just noticed for the first time. It wasn't a proposal or a confession. It was an opening. And somehow, that felt more terrifying than being sent away ever had. The next morning, I woke before the knock on my door. The sky outside my window was pale, just beginning to wake. For the first time since I arrived at the farm, I felt nervous in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with choice. Downstairs, Elias was already awake, as always. He stood at the sink washing his hands, sleeves rolled up, sunlight catching in his hair. When he turned and saw me, there was no awkwardness on his face, no sign that the night before had changed anything. "Morning," he said. "Morning," I replied, my voice quieter than usual. We ate breakfast in silence again, but it was a different silence now. It felt heavier, full of unspoken questions. I wanted to ask him what he meant. I wanted to ask if he truly meant stay, or just stay for now. But I was afraid of breaking the fragile calm between us. After breakfast, I followed him outside. The air was cool, the earth damp. As we worked, I found myself watching him more than the tasks at hand. The way he moved with certainty, like he belonged to this land, like the farm recognized him as its own. I wondered what kind of life had shaped him into someone so steady. Around midday, the sky darkened unexpectedly. Clouds rolled in fast, and before we could finish gathering the tools, rain began to fall. Heavy, sudden drops that soaked through my clothes within seconds. Inside, Elias said, gesturing toward the barn. We ran, laughing despite ourselves, slipping slightly in the mud. Inside the barn, the sound of rain on the roof was loud and rhythmic. We stood there, catching our breath, the space between us smaller than it had ever been. "You don't have to decide right away," he said suddenly. "Decide what?" I asked, though I knew. "About staying. About anything." I nodded, grateful. "Why did you offer?" The question escaped me before I could stop it. He leaned against a wooden beam, eyes focused somewhere far beyond the barn walls. "Because I know what it's like to be sent away," he said quietly. That surprised me. He had always seemed so rooted, so certain. "You were." "Yes," he replied. "Not to a farm, but away from where I thought I belonged." He didn't say more, but something in his voice told me that wasn't the whole story. For the first time, I realized his silence wasn't emptiness. It was protection. That evening, after the rain cleared, we sat on the porch again. The fields glistened under the fading sun. I finally gathered the courage to tell him about the letter, about my family's expectations, their constant disappointment. They say they want what's best for me, I said bitterly. But it always feels like what's best for them. Elias listened without interrupting. When I finished, he nodded slowly. Sometimes people confuse control with care. I swallowed hard. What if I go back and nothing changes? Then you'll know you tried, he said. And if you stay, you should know why you're staying too. That night, I cried quietly in my room, not from sadness alone, but from the weight of being seen without being judged. No one had ever given me that before. Over the next few days, something between us shifted. Elias began talking more, not much, but enough. He told me about how the farm had belonged to his uncle, how he had taken it over after years of working jobs he hated, chasing a version of success that never fit him. He spoke about loneliness, about choosing simplicity when the world told him it wasn't enough. In return, I told him about my dreams, the ones my family laughed at, the ones I had buried under their expectations. I told him how lost I felt, how angry I had been when I arrived. You don't seem angry anymore, he said one afternoon as we worked side by side. I think I was angry at myself, I admitted, for not knowing who I was. He glanced at me, his expression soft. Most people don't. They just pretend they do. One evening, as we were putting tools away, I slipped on the wet ground. Before I could fall, Elias caught me. His hands were firm on my arms, steady. For a moment, neither of us moved. The world felt quiet in a different way. Are you okay? He asked. Yes, I whispered, though my heart was racing. He let go slowly, as if afraid of startling me. But something lingered in the air after he stepped back. A warmth I couldn't ignore. That night, I lay awake again, but this time my thoughts weren't about my family. They were about Elias. About the way he looked at me, not like a problem to solve, not like a burden, but like a person worth understanding. The next day, my family called. I stared at my phone for a long time before answering. My mother's voice filled my ear, tight with concern and expectation. She talked about plans, about how long I'd been gone, about how it was time to come home and start fixing things. I said very little. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Elias noticed immediately. They want you back now, he said. Yes, I replied. They think this was enough time. And what do you think? He asked gently. I opened my mouth, then closed it. The truth was forming, heavy and undeniable. I think, I'm not done here. He nodded, as if he had been prepared for either answer. Then don't rush. That evening, as the sun set, I sat beside him on the porch. Our shoulders almost touched. The closeness felt natural now, not forced. Elias, I said softly. If I stay, what does that mean? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he turned to me, his eyes honest and unguarded. It means we take things slow. It means you stay because you want to, not because you're hiding. And it means I won't pretend this doesn't matter to me. My breath caught. It matters to you. Yes, he said simply. In that moment, I understood something important. This wasn't a dramatic love story filled with grand gestures. It was quieter than that. Deeper. It was about two people choosing each other in the stillness, not because they had to, but because they finally could. As the sky darkened and the stars began to appear, I felt something settle inside me, a sense of belonging I had never known. But I also knew the hardest part was still ahead. Because sooner or later, I would have to face my family. And when that day came, everything would change. The call came earlier than I expected. I was in the field with Elias, the sun just beginning to rise, the air still cool against my skin. I had started to love mornings on the farm, the quiet, the way the world felt new and unjudged. My phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking the calm. I didn't need to look to know who it was. Elias noticed immediately. He didn't ask, didn't push. He simply waited. They're coming, I said after reading the message. Today. He exhaled slowly, nodding once. Then we'll face it today. We worked in silence for a while after that, both of us lost in thought. Fear curled in my chest, old and familiar. The same fear I'd carried my whole life, the fear of disappointing them, of not being enough. But this time, there was something else beneath it. Strength. Or maybe courage. I wasn't sure yet. By noon, a car pulled up outside the farmhouse. Dust rose just like it had the day they dropped me off. For a brief second, I felt like that abandoned version of myself again, standing with a suitcase and no voice. But when Elias stepped beside me, calm and steady, that feeling faded. My parents stepped out first. My mother's eyes scanned me from head to toe, as if checking for damage. My father's face was tight, unreadable. This place, my mother began, looking around. You've been here long enough. I took a breath. I'm not ready to leave. The words surprised even me, but once they were out, they felt right. My father frowned. This was supposed to teach you responsibility, not encourage you to hide. I'm not hiding, I said, my voice shaking but firm. For the first time, I'm actually thinking. My mother's gaze shifted to Elias. And who are you, exactly? Elias didn't flinch. I own the farm. She's been helping here. Helping. Not staying. Not belonging. He wasn't pushing the situation. He was giving me space to speak for myself. She doesn't belong here, my father said sharply. I felt something snap inside me, not anger, but clarity. I don't belong where I'm treated like a mistake, I said. Here, I'm allowed to be quiet. To learn. To breathe. My mother's expression softened, just slightly. We only want what's best for you. I know, I replied. But you never asked me what that was. Silence stretched between us. The wind moved through the fields, the same fields that had slowly healed parts of me I didn't know were broken. We're your family, my father said at last. You can't just choose a stranger over us. I looked at Elias, then back at my parents. I'm not choosing against you, I said. I'm choosing myself. Those words felt like freedom. My parents exchanged a look. They weren't used to this version of me, the one who didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't collapse under their disappointment. We'll give you time, my mother said finally, though her voice carried both worry and defeat. But this can't be forever. I don't know what forever looks like yet, I replied. But this is where I need to be right now. They left shortly after, the car disappearing down the same road that had once felt like a dead end. This time, it felt like a boundary I had finally drawn. When the dust settled, I realized my hands were shaking. Elias noticed and gently placed a hand over mine. You were brave, he said. I was terrified, I admitted. Those two things often live together, he replied. That evening, the farm felt different. Quieter. Heavier. We sat on the porch as we always did, but the air between us was charged with everything that had been left unsaid. I meant what I said before, Elias finally spoke. You can stay. But only if you're choosing it, not because you're running. I turned to him, my heart full and aching at the same time. I'm choosing it. And I'm choosing honesty. He met my gaze. So am I. That was the moment the distance between us disappeared. He didn't rush. He didn't take more than I was ready to give. He simply leaned in, resting his forehead against mine, a quiet promise instead of a dramatic declaration. The kiss that followed was gentle, almost hesitant, but it carried everything: gratitude, fear, hope, and something deep and steady that felt like home. Life didn't suddenly become perfect after that. There were hard days, doubts, moments when I wondered if I was strong enough to keep choosing this life. But Elias never tried to save me. He walked beside me, and somehow, that made all the difference. I started taking real responsibility, not because I was forced to, but because I wanted to. I learned the rhythms of the farm, the patience it demanded. I learned myself. Months later, my family visited again. This time, they didn't come to take me away. They came to see who I had become. They saw the calm in my eyes, the confidence in my voice, the way I stood without shrinking. They didn't say it out loud, but I could tell, they finally understood. One evening, as the sun set over the fields, I stood beside Elias, watching the sky turn gold. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. "Letting me stay?" He smiled softly. "Every good thing in life is a risk," he said. This was one worth taking. I leaned into him, feeling the steady strength of his presence. The farm that had once been my punishment had become my refuge. The quiet farmer who barely spoke had become my home. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't running from who I was. I was finally staying.